Hey everybody, Ben with mailhanger.com. I'm doing a little bit different type of video for y'all today. I've personally always gotten a kick out of or found interest in watching videos that cover they're basically interviews of people's lives, how they got to where they were, what made them successful, that kind of stuff, along with my passion for true crime, that kind of stuff. But I've always found it interesting to look into human psychology, to hear people's stories, why they are who they are, that kind of stuff. So I'm giving you some personal insight into me and my life today. If you were to sit down and talk with me, say at a cocktail party, for example, just as a generic example, I'd give you the usual spiel. Hey, how you doing? You know, that back and forth exchange. Oh, what do you do? And then it goes from there. And but you wouldn't really, unless we spent a lot of time together, probably get to know much of my story. And I've not really done much in the way of sharing that. Of course, I've never really felt obligated to on my YouTube channel. But I feel like doing so today. Again, I've always found it interesting to see what people go through in their lives, how they get to where they are, whether they are the guy working at the bar serving you a cocktail, the lady cleaning you after you at a restaurant, the woman who might come and clean your bathroom at a hotel room, or the guy who does, or flips your sheets or whatever. Who are they? How do you know where they are, why they do what they do? Or do you just look at them from a lens of your perspective of where you are in your life and how you expect or project your beliefs in the world, your system of values on the world and people like them, so to speak? Do you look down on people, or do you look up to people, or do you look at people with an even kind of a playing field lens, or do you wear rose-colored glasses, or whatever, however you want to put it? Do you look at people through the eyes of where you are in your life, what you've been through, or do you look at them through some sort of false expectation type of perspective? So, I've always been, or for the longest time in my life, not to try and sound like I'm all whatever, up and above you watching, or like I feel like I'm better than somebody else, because I truly don't try to look at life that way. I don't try to see other people that way. I don't try to judge people, believe it or not. I know a lot of people out there do look at others that way, and I don't fault you for doing that if you do at this point in your life. Maybe you just haven't been, you haven't been through shit, or maybe you have and you feel like you've got a chip on your shoulder and you've got to put that armor on every day to protect yourself from whatever in your life. Or maybe you just haven't lived very long. You haven't really developed your personality. You haven't really had a well-rounded life, so to speak. You haven't been through things that somebody else has been through. Maybe you have never had to work a hard job. You've never had to wait tables. You've never had to go through military training. Maybe you've never been knocked on your ass and nearly lost everything, Or maybe you have. I get it. People come from all different sorts of backgrounds and perspectives and life experiences, and hopefully after a certain point in your life, after you've experienced so many things, using myself as an example, bagging groceries out of high school, through half of my high school, not knowing what the hell to do, joining the Marines, serving 4 years, getting out honorably, but then not knowing what the hell to do after I got out of the Marines, contrary to the old recruiting military commercials. I don't know what they're like these days, but back in my day, so to speak, when I joined the Marines back in 1996, there was a heavy push for using the message of, the military will help you figure out what you're going to do with your life, and then afterward you'll go back to your community, a leader or a game changer, a new person, you'll have it all figured out. Well, I joined the Marines, and 4 years later I still didn't know what the hell to do with my life. So I've been there, done that. Got out of the Marines and wait tables or find some blue-collar job, because I really didn't have any life experience. I didn't have anything that was going to prepare me for a career path from the Marines. I'm not knocking the Marine Corps. It just happened to be what I chose to do when I was in the Marines. I learned how to guard stuff, and then I learned at my second duty station that last year and a few months in the Marines, I learned how to basically blow things up and shoot people. So I could get into maybe police work, maybe working after some training with the police department. Maybe I could get into explosive ordnance disposal or EOD, or I could have done security work, but none of that really appealed to me. So here I was again at ground zero. I went out and got some blue-collar jobs for a while, bounced between that back and forth and waiting tables for several years. Thankfully, I found my path later on. Did eventually meet a wonderful woman, go back to school, became a dental assistant, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to basically share a little more of the personal side of my story. And so I'm going off of some notes that I keep in a file on my phone. So if you look down, if you see me looking down once in a while, it's not just because I'm insecure, don't know what the hell I'm talking about or whatever, or don't have my thoughts together. I do get a little sidetracked with my train of thought once in a while, and I have to refresh my memory or get myself back there where I should be. So again, as I was alluding to, up until this point, at this point in time, on April 20th of 2023, like I've said, I've been through four years of honorable service with the Marine Corps. I had a friend who was joining right out of high school, and I was like, that sounds like a good idea. It's either that or go back to bagging groceries for who knows how long until I figure out something else to do. So I did that. I got out, went back to, I got into waiting tables, and then I worked at several different restaurants. I did some blue-collar jobs for a while, went back to waiting tables. Met my beautiful wife along the way. We've been happily married now for nearly 15 years. It'll be 15 years this December. And we've had our ups and downs, just like a lot of couples do. No marriage is perfect, but we always found a way to work it out. And a lot of that had to come from my side. I had to stop and realize a few years ago that I was an asshole. I wasn't treating her right. I could treat her a hell of a lot better, and thankfully I woke up one day and realized this stuff, and I turned things around, and we've been doing amazing ever since. Of course, there's a lot of other little stuff in there too, but I went back to school using my GI Bill several years back, and I became a dental assistant. I'd always kind of wanted to do my own thing along the way, but I never really knew what that was. So I got into something called network marketing, a few anyway, network marketing type companies. In other words, one of these things where you sign up and you buy a starter package for whatever business, supplements, or whatever product you're trying to sell through this company, and then you hopefully recruit other people who recruit other people, and it's like, some want to call it a pyramid kind of thing, but I knew people in each one of those businesses, or I met them, who were doing extremely well, and they had legit stories to back it up. So, granted, I met some scammers along the way too in some of those businesses, but as a whole, they work when you can make them work. Now, they don't work for everybody. I just didn't have what they called the warm market for it. So eventually I failed out of most of those that I tried. I made a little money here and there, up to a few $100s a month with the one company, which I won't mention just because I'm not promoting them. And I'm not trying to direct anybody to anybody, so I don't want to put off the wrong vibe or message there. So went back to trying to better myself as a workforce person, with a job, a career path. I'm back in school, decided to do dental assisting, almost went into dental hygiene, but after some observation hours in some dental offices, I was like, no, I really don't want to clean teeth all day and bend over and develop neck and back problems that a lot of hygienists get after a long time doing that kind of stuff. So dental assisting appealed to me more. So I did that for about 9 years off and on, and along the way, as a dental assistant, I figured out what I wanted to do as a business, which happened to be my mail hanger business. And if you subscribe to my channel now, or if you're new to it, you'll figure that out. That's what I do. I do it full time, and I love it. I've had the the fortune and blessing, if you will, of being able to develop it from a side gig where I made a few $100s a month to a few $100s a week, and sometimes now I do a few $100s a day. I'm not trying to humble brag or anything, but it's taken a lot of damn hard work, long time commitment. I started this business back in August of 2012. A little bit on the side while I had a full-time job, and here I am. And things continue to grow and improve, and I'm networking with people and going from online sales completely to offline sales in the retail market here in the near future. But it hasn't always been the great story that it is. It's been a struggle along the way. I didn't exactly come from a background of a strong role models, strong male role model, like a lot of people believe that a young man should have as they're growing up. I don't believe that's completely necessary, as long as there's some sort of strong parent there in the picture. Now, because I know things happen, but I don't fault my father, I don't fault my mother, I don't hold grudges toward people from my past. I'm just that type of personality. You either want to be in my life or you don't, and I'm cool with that. I'm thankful my mother loves me like she does. I'm thankful that she is in my life like she does. I've got a great family, the family that is around me. But it just didn't work out that way with my dad. To give you an example, getting back to my notes here, getting back on track a little bit. With my mom, let's just start with her. I'm not naming anybody in this video, by the way, because I don't want anything, again, to be misconstrued. But my mom was adopted from what in America these days we would call a dirt poor family in Greece. She was literally one of several children in this family that could barely afford to raise her. And so she and her sisters were adopted out, so to speak, through this program in California. I don't remember what it was called at the time, but back in the early to mid-50s, 1950s, I believe it was the governor of California at the time, started this program where American families in California, at least, could adopt children from other countries and bring them to California and try to give them a better life. And so my mother and her sisters were fortunate enough that a family from California wanted to do this for them. Unfortunately for the sisters, it was kind of like a Cinderella kind of story. My mom was the one who adapted. My mom was the one who worked out the best. She was the youngest of the three, but the older sisters didn't like being there. They couldn't get along with the new family, and so they had to go back to Greece. And there was always this kind of bad blood, so to speak, because of all that between her and my sisters, bad feelings over the years. My poor mom still has psychological issues to this day in her mid-60s that affected her because of all that trauma, and she grew up in an emotionally abusive household and very sheltered. And by the time she was pregnant with me, around 20, 21 years old, she and my father were basically, I don't know the whole story, but he basically, from what I do understand, had probably already had one foot out the door, so to speak, of the marriage. And she finds out she's pregnant with me by him, and she's not sure what to do because, again, she's young, she's barely getting by on her own, trying to figure her own path out in the world. Things are rocky with the marriage, not going so great there, and his advice to her is, well, why not get an abortion? Right? I found this out, by the way, about a year or so ago. I'm nearly 45, right? You want to have something like... Seriously. For me, anyway, that was like, holy shit. You mean I could have been aborted at some time? I might not have this awesome life I've got. I might not have the wife I've got. Seriously, that was like, wow. And it's easier to write that down than it is to say it out loud sometimes, but And I'm not a religious person. I know that people say that a lot these days, but you want to talk about feeling like you might have a guardian angel sometimes, or there is like divine intervention or whatever. And again, I'm not trying to sound all haughty or egotistical or full of myself or like, wow, God has a plan for me, that type of person, you know. Maybe, maybe not. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because every time I put my mind to something with my life, it seems to go in my favor more often than not. And I'm a firm believer in that kind of concept. I don't so much pray, but I do have a tendency to focus on optimism and toward positive thoughts and believing that if I feel like I'm doing the right thing, if I feel like what I'm doing is my calling, as religious people will say, then more often than not, things do align in my favor in my life. I don't believe in The Secret or that kind of shit. I think it's kind of woo-woo. But again, positive outcomes tend to come from positive motivations and feelings. If your heart is in it, your heart is in the right place. That's my experience. So, there was that, I could have been aborted, and then what? I wouldn't be here, right? My mom raised me mostly by herself. Thankfully, she did change her mind. She actually went to a local library, by the way, and checked out a book because, again, she was in a very sheltered, very emotionally abusive, very cut off from information, kind of an upbringing in that household that she grew up in with her adopted family. So she decided to go down to her local library and check out a book about fetal development. And she found out how far along, I think she knew she was in her first trimester or so, first couple months of pregnancy, and she got to see what became Ben looked like, and she changed her mind. Right? So the first several years of my childhood, it was a struggle for me and my mom. She waited tables. She did odd jobs trying to make money to feed us both. And sometimes it was canned foods and macaroni and cheese, and that's how we got by. I don't fault her for any of her decisions along the way. I know she did her best, and she eventually joined the Army herself. And, we had a great life. But as is such in life, things are not always as smooth as they should be or could be or we hope them to be. I joined the Marines when I was right at 18. My dad hadn't really been around most of my life. From age 3, he left the picture up until around age 18, shortly after I graduated from boot camp. He decided it was a good time to meet up for whatever the reason. Don't really totally understand that one. We didn't hang out for very long. It was like a day visit, and then he had to go back to his life. It's kind of like a meet and greet and hang out with you for a little bit. Kind of sorry, not sorry, son kind of thing. Again, never really could totally wrap my mind around that one, but it is what it is, and that's been nearly 20 years ago. So, actually over 20 years ago now. Wow. But anyway, so never really had a strong father role model, father figure, and there's some drug abuse issues on his side of the family. There's struggle on my side of the family, on my mom's side. There's all these little things that, honestly, these days, if I had not become who I am, if I had, for example, not joined the Marines or joined the Marines, whatever, let's say I bagged groceries for several more years and just kind of became a no direction in life kind of person, or let's say I joined the Marines and got out and became a homeless veteran, or never picked myself back up, became an alcoholic or a drug abuser, given my past circumstances, a lot of people these days would be like, well, gosh, can you really blame how Ben turned out on Ben? Isn't he a victim of his environment or his upbringing or his life? I mean, young single mom, struggled to put food on the table, dad who was never really there, When dad did come back around, come to find out, well, it's probably, financially motivated, or, oh, well, his dad's a drug abuser, had drug addiction problems. Doesn't it kind of run in the family? But no, I decided to take it upon myself and not go down any of those paths. I decided to focus on the positive, focus on what I could change, what I could control in my life. And so I hope that me sharing this story today might help some people out there. Maybe if you're struggling in your life, you're not really sure where to go, what to do with your life. I guess my message overall is keep your head up. I know that sounds corny to some people, but more often than not, the negative times in your life are temporary. The short-term struggles in your life usually are short-term struggles. The big setbacks are usually not that big of a deal, or they're temporary, or it's just a temporary hurdle. These have been my experiences anyway. When I've had times in my life where money's been harder to come by, or a $500 expense would set me back on my ass and be like, oh my God, what do I do now? Right? I've been stupid in the past with money. For example, I've run up nearly $40,000 in credit card debt at one point in my 20s, just being young and stupid. And I'm not saying you're stupid if you have money problems. Don't get me wrong. It's just been that, I guess the message what I'm trying to convey is I've been there, done that. And if you want to get out of what you're in, whatever situation it is, if you truly want to, you usually can. I got 40 grand in debt, and I went out and got a second job. I know. Fucking crazy, right? I would literally wait tables till whatever time of day, get home, take a nap for 2 hours, shower, and go to... Actually, I had a day shift job, blue-collar day shift job. They call it picking, packing. I would do that first, get up at, I think, 4 in the morning, shower, throw on my clothes, go do that job for 8 hours. Then I would come home, shower again, usually because I stunk from the first job, maybe take a nap for 2 or 3 hours, get up, chug some coffee, and then I'd go wait tables for several more hours. 5 days, sometimes 6 days a week. And I worked my ass off. I got out of debt, just in that example. But yeah, so I've been there, done that. I've been through my hard times. I've been through good times. And for the most part, these days, I feel like I've got a lot to be thankful for. I love my life. I love where it's going. I know my story's far from over. I've got a beautiful wife. I've got a beautiful daughter. And I'm able to help provide for our family, my daughter's future. She can basically do whatever she wants to. Granted, I hope she educates herself and maybe does a career path, maybe not. Maybe I'm inspiring to her. I like to think I am, setting a good example in that regard as a father to a child. Not only, using the example of, or the positive, whatever you want to call it, positive example of sticking through the hard times with the marriage, when I could have walked out, or Autumn, my wife, could have left. We worked things out, and it was because we wanted to. It wasn't because there's a child in the picture and we got to do it for her, that kind of thing. I feel like that's the wrong reason to stay together, usually. Now, granted, I do believe in being a parent when you're a parent. If you have a child, you need to take care of that child. But if you have a toxic relationship you cannot work through, of course, you shouldn't torture yourself to do so. But you do have an obligation to be there for that child that you brought into the world. So not trying to harp too hard on that stuff, but I feel like I'm being a positive role model in that regard, being a good father, not to toot my own horn too much, but also with my business. I'm showing my daughter that, and I'm already teaching her this kind of stuff early on from an early age, so I'm planting these little seeds in her mind that if she wants to go be an employee somewhere for some company, great. If she wants to go be a doctor of some kind, she loves animals, we're setting aside money in case she wants to be a veterinarian one day. Awesome. Go be like Dr. Pol. If you don't know who Dr. Pol is, look it up. She loves watching his show. He's a veterinarian, I forget where, but anyway. If you want to be, hey, if maybe you start your own business one day. You know, she's got all of these awesome opportunities rather than being pigeonholed, so to speak, like most of us are from an early age. We're usually taught, you know, you get up, you go to school, you get done with school, and you follow a certain education path, and then you maybe find a job or whatever. That works great for a lot of people, but not for everybody, like myself. When I was working jobs, I never hated the job I was doing, but I always felt like this isn't quite where I'm supposed to be. This isn't my thing. So I kept my feelers out, and eventually I found something that did work for me. Anyway, I feel like I'm starting to drone on a little bit here, and I probably am, and I apologize. I just hope somebody out there got some good out of this video, and I enjoyed doing this. I don't always get so personal, obviously, but thanks for bearing with me. Hope you have a great day. See you on the next one.